Welcome to the Jefferson College Spotlight as Jefferson College's Community Band is preparing for its spring concert performance. And with that, they've got a very special guest conductor, world-renowned composer, Mr. Elliot Del Borgo. Mr. Del Borgo, thank you for joining me on the Jefferson College Spotlight.
My pleasure.
As I said, you're quite a prolific composer and writer and author, teacher, conductor, having written nearly, in fact, over 500 compositions in the course of your numerous career. You've received a number of honors and awards and other kinds of accolades as well. As a primer this morning, please describe, if you will, what's been your experience as both a composer, a teacher, and a conductor.
Well, like most musicians, I started out wanting to be a performer. I was a trumpet player, and as I moved through my educational experience, I saw the possibilities of composition, conducting, teaching. And I gravitated toward teaching in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and found the need for really substantial educational music for young players. So with my theory composition background, I started writing for my junior high school orchestra. And one thing led to another, and soon I found out I was doing a lot more composing and conducting than I was performing. And gradually I gravitated toward that. And my original supposition turned out to be correct. There really wasn't a good deal of music for young orchestras at that time. Most of the things that were on the market were either transcriptions or watered down versions of the classics. So I started to write pieces that young people could play, but that still contained the kernels of good, serious music.
I'm surprised when I see here that you've written nearly 500 compositions, and I know here in my job at the college, one of the things I do in terms of being a photographer is that regardless of how many years ago perhaps I have taken a photograph, if someone will show me something that I took, I will immediately know that that was mine. Is the same true in terms of a composition that almost they become your children, so to speak?
Yes, composers do in fact develop styles. You know, Mozart sounds like Mozart. He doesn't sound like Bruckner or Brahms. And with a contemporary composer, it's even more telling because we have a good deal more freedom in terms of harmony, in terms of form. And our pieces do have a hallmark. So sure, I don't remember all of those 500 compositions, but yeah, I can tell when I wrote it.
One of the fascinating things to me is the fact that you're well known in writing the music to the 1980 Olympics. Of course, the world-renowned Miracle on Ice year. Tell us a little bit about how all of that transpired and that good fortune.
Well, Lake Placid, New York is about 50 miles south of Potsdam, New York, where the State University unit was. And when we knew the Olympics were coming, we had a music school of 500 majors and 50 faculty members, so we offered to provide all the music for them. Of course, they jumped at the chance because it meant a ready access to performers and composers. So we got our staff together and found out what the Olympic Committee needed in terms of music, and we parceled out all of the assignments. So I did the music for the closing ceremonies, and it was quite an experience.
I'm sure it was. Probably one of those that you'll, of course, never, ever forget.
No, that's true. I mean, worldwide television for a premiere performance doesn't happen every other day.
It's true. So. With that, we're just about ready to watch a couple of performances by the Jefferson College Community Band that you directed. Specifically, the three pieces are Slavonic dances, sailing songs, and then finale from Symphony No. 8. Speak just a little bit in terms of the backgrounds of each of those pieces that particularly you've selected to direct here at Jefferson.
Well, Slavonic dances is a set of 5 Slavonic folk songs. And composers throughout all the major style periods have always been intrigued with folk music. There's a certain honesty about folk music. There's a clarity to folk music that lends itself very well to symphonic development. So when I was at the State University of New York, I had access to a wonderful music library and had great folk song collections. So I found these 5 folk songs after looking through probably a couple of hundred, and to find some that would work well with the instrumentation and the colors of the band. And I just enjoy setting folk music because, as I say, it gives you the opportunity to, it's like a sculptor working in clay. It gives you a chance to mold them and putting them into a symphonic form. And I think they work out very well. As I say, this is, I think I have folk suites of every culture on the face of the earth by now, but I do enjoy working with them. The sailing songs, again, came from some research into sea songs And I did the same kind of thing. This time it's a set of 3, a fast one, a slow one, and then another fast one to end up, but with the same idea of treating them symphonically and using different textures and different colors to make it work as a concert piece. The Dvorak, I'm a great believer in bands playing transcriptions, because obviously there isn't a whole lot of band literature prior to the 20th century. So if band players are to experience the great masters of the Baroque, classic, romantic periods, obviously you need transcriptions. I was conducting a concert in San Diego. We were doing the 8th Symphony, and I thought, boy, that finale would make a great band piece, because it's, it's very brassy and it's very, very energetic. So when I got back after that conducting engagement, I set the finale for band. And I think it makes a wonderful band piece. It retains all the fire and vigor of Dvorak, and yet you get a chance to use the power of a modern symphonic band.
One of the things that we mentioned before we came on the air today is the fact that now in what is a retired role, although it's quite a full-time job, as you're a clinician and an adjudicator, and in this case a guest conductor, you really don't have very many time, maybe 24, maybe 48 hours to come in and work with the band. As you do that, what are some of the challenges that you face? Obviously, in not having that time to have lengthy rehearsals in terms of working on specific sections or such in such a concentrated time period.
It's mainly a question of concepts. I'm fortunate most of the time when you come into a guest conductor situation, the bands are well prepared. They know the notes, they know the rhythms, they can play. The thing I'm looking for is to develop a concept, and every conductor will tell you that they have a certain concept of sound, a certain sense of style for pieces, and this is the thing you try to get done as quickly as possible. Some of it obviously you do with conducting gestures, but much of it is communication in the rehearsal to mold that band into the kind of sound that you have in your head. I always say that the conductor must have that internal vision of the piece. If the band in heaven were playing it, what would it sound like? And what I try to do in a short period of time is to translate that through gesture and sometimes through instructive techniques, but to develop those musical concepts that I think will make the band do the piece the way I want it to be done, especially if it's a piece I've written. You really have that firmly embedded, and you try to bring the two together.
As you talked about the many compositions you've written before, what do you use in terms of your inspiration and muse, so to speak, as you sit down and think about the compositions? Is it a method of feeling? Is it a method of wanting to write about a specific subject? What motivation, or so to speak, do you use in terms of writing a composition?
Well, sometime, as in 2 of the pieces tomorrow night, it's folk song music. I really am a great fan of folk music, and that becomes the kind of raw material. Other times it could be a title, it could be a poem. When you write a programmatic piece, and you work towards recreation in sound, the feelings of whatever that happens to be, if it's a poem or a title. And many times it's simply absolute music. It's abstract, and you work from just doing the symphonic techniques that have been developed over many centuries.
Along with that, when someone listens to a piece, or really any form of music, doesn't have to be instrumental necessarily, but in your opinion, what are the characteristics that make a good song?
Well, I think that first it must have an overall shape to it. And by that I mean that there's a rise and fall to the dramatic curve of the composition. I think a composition is like a play. You develop some ideas, you develop, you get into a conflict of ideas, and then you come to some sort of resolution. So that is a starting point. You have to have an idea that there's an overall form to the piece that makes sense. Then I look for, I think, structural material in terms of harmony that pleases me. I think the harmonic basis of a composition is like the steel work that frames a big building. When the harmonic material is solid and works well, I think your piece is going to hold together. And then the last thing I look for are melodic and sometimes motivical devices that are memorable. Being an Italian composer, I think the whole Italian operatic thing is inside me all the time. So I'm a great fan of beautiful melody. And I know sometimes in a lot of contemporary music that's falling out of fashion, but I can't let go of that gorgeous melody that has a good shape to it, that has an interesting way of twisting and turning before it approaches the ending. So those are the things I look for in a well-made composition.
Elliot, your appearance here at Jefferson is, of course, being underwritten by not only the college's Cultural Council, but the Viking band camps as well. How is it that you know Joe Pappas, who is the director of this group?
Well, we both wound up doing some work for an outfit in Pennsylvania called Educational Programs. And through that, there's an arm that publishes an EPP. And so Joe and I both work with the Wells brothers, and we've known each other for a while through that connection.
And as you travel internationally as both a teacher, a lecturer, and a consultant, we mentioned earlier the fact that in many cases your time is very concentrated in terms of exposure to students. What would you say, as in the role of being a teacher, is the single most important concept that you wish for students to learn?
I want them to have a passion for music. I think you can have all the skill in the world, you can have all the knowledge in the world, you can be a well-meaning individual, but if you don't have a passion for the art, all those other things really don't mean a whole lot. And the thing I try to get across, particularly when I do clinics for prospective music teachers, is I want them to have the passion for the art that got them into music in the first place. If they can maintain that, and if they can maintain that drive to perfection, they'll be successful. And the methodology almost is secondary. You know, I don't tell them they have to do it my way. I don't tell them to do it the way their teacher showed them in their methods classes. I think if they have this passion and this commitment to the art, they'll be successful.
And for a final thought today, your career certainly is quite a who's who. Worked a number of years with the Crane School of Music. We mentioned earlier that you've composed music to the Olympics. You've written over 500 compositions, won numerous awards. When you look at all of that in its totality, what to you is the single most significant and important accomplishment you've had thus far?
Well, I'd like to think that I've written music that young players can play and improve as musicians, and try to give them good material to work with, the good aspects of a solid piece of music. I think too much of the music that the young people listen to, the commercial music, is abominable. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I think it hurts rather than helps them develop as musicians, as people. And I think what I've tried to do is write music that will help them not only improve as players, but as sensitive human beings. And I think that our goal in music education should be to provide the kids with good raw material. Because, you know, the old saying, you are what you eat, I think you are what you play. And if you play music that has profound meaning to it, music that has that emotional connection, I think you get to be a better musician. I think you get to be a better person. And as I say, the commercialization of so much music and the low level of aesthetic quality is a serious problem, not only for music teachers, I think for our society. And what I try to do is I try to be almost an apostle of fine art.
Well, with that, we do appreciate your time, and certainly on behalf of all of us at Jefferson College, we're so fortunate to be able to have someone of your stature and magnitude on our campus. And we really do appreciate you being here and teaching us all that you know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that sets, of course, the stage for the performance you're about to see. It's called The Music of Elliot Del Borgo. It's produced right here at Jefferson College. Thanks for watching.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our first concert of the spring. Tonight we feature the music of Mr. Elliot Del Borgo. You can read about Mr. Del Borgo in the back of your program. Our first number is a tune entitled Castles in Europe, which was written by James Reese Europe and arranged by Nicholas McCarno. His style of writing was mostly jazz-oriented. It was associated with the famed dance team of the early 1900s, Vernon and Irene Castle. The Castles in Europe, subtitled An Innovative Foxtrot, was written for especially the Castles as one of their dance competition numbers. James Reese Europe led many groups. His African-American jazz band was given the honor of being the first of its type to play at Carnegie Hall. He later went on to become the band leader for the 369th Infantry, named the Harlem Hellfighters. When he died in 1919, all of New York City mourned his death at a public funeral. He was the first black man to have such an honor. Here is Castles in Europe. Tonight, we are very fortunate to have as our guest conductor, Mr. Elliot Del Borgo. Mr. Del Borgo is recognized worldwide for his arrangements and original compositions for band and orchestra. He's in demand as a clinician, guest lecturer, and guest conductor. The first number Mr. Del Borgo will conduct this evening is his arrangement of Slavonic dances. This work is a collection of 5 authentic Slavonic folk tunes that provides the material for this colorful and energetic composition. The contrasting moods of each section vividly display the vigor and passion of Slavonic peasant life. Please welcome to our stage, Mr. Elliot Del Borgo. Our next selection, entitled Sailing Songs, is based on 3 familiar songs about sailors and the sea. The symphonic setting makes use of the unique colors and sonorities of the concert band. The piece features both rhythmic and melodic interest in all the parts, with a careful consideration given to the playability of the music. Here is Mr. Del Borgo's Sailing Songs. The music of Antonin Dvorak is decidedly one of the finest among the great Romantic composers. Dvorak, who was considered the national composer of the Czechoslovakian people, became familiar with the music of early America in his travels to this country. Many are familiar with his Ninth Symphony, subtitled the New World Symphony. His Symphony Number 8 is as powerful. Mr. Del Borgo has taken care to capture the full power and majesty of one of the best symphonic closing movements ever written in this arrangement of the finale from Symphonic Number 8. Please welcome back for his final piece this evening, Mr. Del Borgo conducting his arrangement of Finale, Symphony Number 8. band's final selection this evening captures the beauty of magic. The piece has its own sense of mystique, but also includes a source of fun and fantasy. As composer Frank Kelly describes his basis for this piece, he was often visualizing the playful image of his young son preparing for Halloween with costumes and jack-o'-lanterns. As the piece nears its conclusion, music rushes toward what seems to be an explosive finish, but the woodwinds interrupt, fanning out to a questioning tone cluster that eventually disappears by a puff of sound, and the final disappearing act. Here is Frank Kelly's Abracadabra.
Great education.
Friendly atmosphere.
Beautiful campus.
The convenience and the affordability.
My experience at Jefferson College has been wonderful.
I find the quality of education here at Jefferson College to be one of a kind.
My experience at Jefferson College has been a major plus in my life and one of the best decisions I've made.
Jefferson College would be the place that I would recommend the most.
I'm Katie Williams.
I'm Kevin Higginbotham.
I'm Ann Martinson.
I'm Tony Markovich, and I'm proud I chose to attend Jefferson College.
You may not know their names, but the students who are helped through a Jefferson College Foundation scholarship carry thanks in their hearts. It's for the kindness that our contributors have shown. Make a difference in their tomorrows.
Education, the great equalizer. It doesn't just mean you get more knowledge, it means you improve your quality of life.
Give to the Jefferson College Foundation today.